Welcome to Furniture Industry News. Today is Tuesday, August 4th, 2026, and thanks for joining us. Last week on this show, the theme was growth without demand. Company after company posted decent numbers, and almost none of them got there by selling more furniture. They got there through acquisitions, through margin discipline, through structure. This week, the picture changed. 3 separate reads landed today, from an online giant, from a traditional full-service retailer, and from the factory floor. And all 3 point the same direction. Somebody is finally selling more furniture. The one place the good news did not show up is the cost side, and we will get to that. Start with Wayfair, because it turned in the strongest top-line quarter it has had since 2020. Total net revenue rose 7.5% to $3.5 billion for the quarter that ended June 30th. In the United States, revenue climbed 8.7% to $3.1 billion. The company's chief executive, co-founder, and co-chairman, Neeraj Shah, told investors that United States revenue growth was the best the company has seen across the entire post-COVID period. Now, that number deserves a closer look, because how it was earned matters more than the headline. Orders delivered came to 10.6 million, up 6%. Average order value barely moved, going from $328 a year ago to $332. Put those two together and you have a traffic and conversion story, not a price story. The company sold to more people more often. It did not simply charge more. Active customers reached 21.7 million, up a little over 3%, and revenue per active customer over the trailing 12 months rose about 4% to $596. Repeat customers still placed just over 80% of orders, down only a hair from a year ago. On the bottom line, Wayfair reported a net loss of $1 million, or a penny per diluted share, against a $15 million profit in the same quarter last year. Adjusted earnings came in at 95 cents per share, ahead of the 89 cents analysts were looking for, and adjusted EBITDA was $242 million. For the third quarter, the company is guiding to high single-digit revenue growth.
Here is why that 8.7% should get your attention. Furniture store sales were down roughly 2% across the first half of this year. So when one company grows almost 9% in a shrinking category, that volume came off somebody's floor. And the competitive shape of this is changing. The day before Wayfair reported, it announced it is coming to Pennsylvania, and it keeps adding locations to a 2027 store lineup. The pure online competitor is becoming a physical one in markets that used to be protected by the simple friction of getting a sofa delivered. Which brings us to the second read, and it comes from the opposite end of the business model. Havertys posted its 4th consecutive quarter of growth in written business, delivered business, and same-store sales. Net sales for the quarter rose 7.7% to $194.9 million from $181 million a year ago. Net income nearly doubled, rising more than 97% to $5.3 million, or 32 cents per diluted share, up from 16 cents. The detail worth sitting with is the gross margin, which expanded to 61.4%. President and Chief Executive Steve Burdette said Memorial Day weekend was strong, with average tickets up double digits. Think about that combination for a moment. This is a full-service retailer with delivery and design attached that raised its average ticket by double digits over a promotional holiday weekend and improved its margin at the same time. That is about as clean an argument as you will find that trade-up selling beats discount velocity in this environment. Burdette also named a strengthening design business, along with average ticket growth, among the reasons he feels good heading into the back half of the year.
There is a caution attached, and it is a useful one. About $1.5 million of that gross margin came from tariff refunds. The company disclosed that plainly, and its forward guidance of roughly 60.5% to 61% deliberately leaves out any future refunds on indirectly sourced product. So if you are benchmarking your own margin against a public competitor this quarter, back the refunds out first. Otherwise, you are measuring yourself against a number your own profit and loss statement cannot produce. We saw the same thing last week with another well-known name. Tariff refund recovery has become a real line item, and it can flatter a quarter. Havertys is also still building. It opened stores in Fenton, Missouri and Mount Juliet, Tennessee, and it is on track for 5 more openings plus 1 relocation, which would take it to 133 stores by year-end. An upcoming Pittsburgh entry will extend the chain into its 18th state. Keep that in your back pocket because Pennsylvania just came up twice in one day from 2 very different operators betting on the same map. The third read comes from manufacturing, and it is the one that gets the least attention and probably deserves the most. Furniture factories returned to growth in July after contracting in June. The Institute for Supply Management's Manufacturing Index registered 55.6%, its highest reading since May of 2022, and furniture and related products was one of 15 out of 18 industries reporting growth. Susan Spence, who chairs the committee behind that survey, said manufacturing is growing at its fastest rate in more than 4 years. Underneath the headline, the order book improved in 3 specific ways. Furniture was among the industries reporting growth in new orders, reversing its June decline. Furniture ranked third among the 11 industries reporting higher order backlogs, trailing only plastics and rubber products and textile mills. And furniture was one of only 4 industries in all of manufacturing that reported growth in new export orders on an index that hit its strongest level since March of 2022.
Now here is the operational warning inside the good news. Orders rose, backlogs rose, but furniture did not appear on the list of industries reporting a change in either production or employment, which means output was essentially flat against June. Read that combination, and you get domestic makers absorbing demand into the backlog rather than adding capacity to clear it. That is exactly how quoted lead times quietly stretch in September and October, after you have already sold the goods to a customer with a delivery date in mind. If you carry domestic programs, this is the week to reconfirm delivery windows on fall floor sets and special orders, and to get those commitments in writing before market. The cost side backs that up. Average lead times for production materials moved out to 87 days from 84 in June, and supplier deliveries slowed for an 8th consecutive month. Input prices are still climbing for the 22nd straight month, though the pace of increase has now cooled for 3 months running. Furniture was among 14 industries paying more for raw materials, and wood products ranked second on that list, behind only textile mills. Aluminum, corrugated, freight, ocean freight, paper, plastics, and resins all rose in price, and the survey tied that pressure to steel and aluminum costs, tariffs on imported goods, and petroleum-linked increases connected to conflict in the Middle East. One more manufacturing note, and it is a genuine milestone. Factory employment across manufacturing returned to growth for the first time in 33 months, the strongest reading since August of 2022. Furniture has not joined that hiring cycle yet, and despite the best headline number in 4 years, the mood in the survey comments stayed sour. Negative remarks outnumbered positive ones by roughly 1.5 to 1, with pricing volatility showing up in more than half of the negative comments, followed by the war involving Iran, then longer lead times, then tariffs. 2 strategy stories to close on, and both are about where growth comes from next.
The first is Wayfair again, this time on Perigold, its luxury nameplate. Annual revenue there has passed $400 million, which is only a little over 3.5% of Wayfair's United States business, but it has grown at a double-digit rate every single year since it launched in 2017, including more than 20% in both of the last 2 years. Second quarter sales grew more than 35%. The active customer base is approaching 400,000, up nearly 20%. The number that actually matters, though, is this one. Roughly 40% of those buyers are entirely new to Wayfair's family of brands, and they spend nearly 3 times more per year than a typical Wayfair shopper. That is luxury working as a customer acquisition channel, not as a niche. It reaches households the core site never touches, and then it keeps them at triple the annual spend. The company is opening more physical Perigold stores in top luxury markets, and the first 2, in Houston and in Palm Beach, Florida, are already generating higher average order volume than the website does.
This is the retailer's answer to something we covered a week ago when vendors were competing for space on floors that already exist rather than chasing new doors. Treat it as an economic proposition rather than a merchandising trend. A hosted showcase turns square footage from a cost line into a revenue line, and it lets you test a category without carrying the inventory. The practical question for your own floor is which 2 or 3 vendors would pay for defined space, fixtures, and a staffing commitment, and whether that rent beats what you currently earn per square foot on the same real estate. The underlying logic is simple enough. Online retail owns convenience. Physical retail has to answer with discovery. That is your briefing. If you find this useful, consider subscribing so you get each issue as it publishes.